Okay, now we need to connect to our database in the code. For that, we'll need a little package called MongoDB. So just pop up your terminal and stop the current process. You can press Control C or Command C and run npm e short for installed MongoDB. Press enter. And when the packaging is installed, let's restart the development server. So npm run dev and we're good to go. Now we need to customize the bridge to pass, for instance, our connection string. So we'll customize a function so we can reuse that function everywhere in the code so we can update our database anytime. It's a good thing to separate different type of functions in your code. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new folder inside of the root directory called libs, short for library. Some people call it utilities. You can call it the way you want. I just like the word libs. And then we're going to create a mongo.js file. This will be the file responsible to connect with our database. And instead of writing some very boring code, let's use the code base I created for you. Just use the link below. You will end up on this page. You can just copy and paste the code in Mongo.js. Okay, so the reason we're copy pasting this code instead of writing it ourselves is because it's very advanced, because it's very boring, and also because you will never touch this code. It's only specific to this project. Once we've created this, we'll never touch it again. Instead, I'm going to break down a few pieces for you. So first, at the top, we import the MongoDB client, so the bridge to MongoDB from the package we just installed. Then we have this if condition. So the process.environment is that things that let us access environment variable on our computer. The Mongo URI is the one that we have in the environment.local right here. And then when we try to evaluate if and then a variable, it's going to return true if the variable exists. It's going to return false if it doesn't exist. And the exclamation mark is going to reverse that value. So if this does not exist, if we did not add the value somewhere in our project, then this is going to return false. And we're going to reverse it with the exclamation mark, which means this becomes true. And then we enter this line. And then we're going to throw an error. We're going to go over that in the next part of the course, but basically this is going to make the code crash. So that if you forget to add this to your project, the code, the app here will show you a big error message. Then we do const URI equal the name of the variable. So we're just reassigning the value of this MongoDB URI inside of a shorter variable, something the name is just a little bit more friendly. Then we have another variable, which is a JavaScript object with some options. This is just how do we connect to the database. This is some like really advanced stuff. And then we create those two variables with the let keyword. The let keyword just means that later in this file, we'll probably update the variable, give it different values. It's not a constant. And then we have a big if-else statement. The if-else statement is going to check if that is true. The process.environment is what we've talked about earlier. The node-env is a very popular environment variable. It's been given by default when we run the project with Next.js. It's going to set this to the actual environment. And the environment, remember, it could be either development on your computer or production on the web machine, on the web server somewhere on the internet. So what this line does is basically is checking if we are running the code on your computer or on the online server. And the reason we do that is because on our computer, it's a little bit different how things are handled. As you're editing code and you save and it's refreshed the entire code, it's a bit different from the server where instead we're just going to deploy the code once and it's going to be running forever. This is very advanced, but what it says is basically create a connection with a database, and if we save the file and then we refresh everything, keep the connection open instead of killing the connection and reopening one. It's just a matter of performance. Again, this is very advanced. You really don't want to get into this. This is not important. The only important line here is this one, where we have the client, the variable we declared previously, and equal to new MongoDB clients. The MongoDB client is what we import from MongoDB at the top. This is the driver that let us connect, and we give it two things. We give it the URI, which is this thing. So basically we give it the connection string, the keys to our database, and we give it an object of options, with a few parameters, which in our case, it doesn't really matter. So this thing is basically a bridge to let us connect to our database using JavaScript. And that's why we have the line here, client.connect. And then we have this line, export default client promise. And so this variable here is equal to client.connect. So we are exporting a little JavaScript object that is connecting to the database. So now the thing that matters is how do we use it to connect to the database in our code. You can save the file and close it because we'll never touch it again. And then in our page.js, this is just to show you, this is not going to work right now, but this is just to show you a glimpse. It's as simple as this. First, we need to import the client promise, that object we just created that has the keys to our database. We import it from the libs folder inside of the MongoJS file. And then we say something like .db to say we want to connect to a database, and then .collection for the connection we want to check. And then we can have something like .find with some parameters to do exactly the same things we were doing before. This line of code is probably not going to work at the moment. Instead of writing some like a generic code, we're going to dive straight into an use case for our database, and we're going to log in users, so sign in, sign up, so that they have access to their private dashboard. And little hint, in order to save users, we'll need a database.